come into a relationship, seek to enter into a relationship, but we are not healed, but we are not all right, but we are unresolved, but we are lacking, then we, by us entering into that relationship, we doom that relationship. Wave shapers, you are here for a reason. I dare you to stick around and find out why. Today's episode is all about relationships. We're going to be talking about the two most important things for a successful, long-term, romantic relationship. My friends have been asking me if I was going to get into relationships on the Wave Shapers podcast. And I told them what I've told you guys, that there is nothing off limits in this podcast. So I have some pretty interesting theories when it comes to relationships. People already know. Some unpopular opinions. However, if we look at the state of our world and we look at the amount of failing relationships, I think we can all agree that something is wrong, that we're doing something wrong, and that we know the definition of insanity: to do the same thing over and over and expect different results. So we'll get into a few of the unpopular opinions today, but I really just want you guys to have an open mind and an open heart and consider these two most important things in order to have a successful long-term relationship. I'm going to tell you the two things up front, and then I'm going to give you a little bit of a backstory as to how we arrived at these two things. And then, realistically speaking, we'll probably make this video one of three, because this will be like the intro to present the topic, and then we will make another video that discusses the first of the two most important things, and then a third video that discusses and goes into detail that second of the two most important things. So the two most important things in order to have a successful, long-term, romantic relationship. Number one, you as an individual need to be healed and whole. That is the number one thing. There is no such thing as somebody else making you happy. There is no such thing as somebody else fixing you. We've heard it said, I'm looking for my other half. That in no way is the right way to approach a relationship. Because if you're saying that I'm looking for my other half, you are inferring by that statement, and even if people don't say this out loud, that's a lot of time what people are thinking, subconsciously, is that I'm going to find somebody else that is going to complete me. In essence, I'm going to find my other half. But what that means is that you yourself are not complete. You are incomplete. You are missing something. And a lot of times, what it is that you're missing is derived from unresolved trauma, pain, or things that no other person will be able to satisfy. So the number one most important thing that you need to check off the list before you're ever ready to consider a serious, long-term, committed relationship is that you go on your journey of healing and of restoration. Unresolved traumas in your life and things that are lacking will literally be the prophecy of the death or the dysfunction of your future relationship. We've kind of gone into this a little bit on the Wave Shapers channel, but remember, there are two types of trauma. Everybody put your fingers up. Peace sign. Two types of trauma. There is trauma type A and trauma type B. The first type of trauma is when there were things in your life that you should have received and you never received. So when you are a baby, when you're first born, the first human need is to receive unconditional love and care by their parents. That's what we come into this world and we are needing and we are wanting and we are desiring, and rightfully so. We were designed to need that, to need to be unconditionally loved. Now, if we are deprived of that unconditional love and care, if we don't receive that from our parents, now why won't we receive that from our parents? We can answer this a few different ways, but the most direct, straightforward way to answer it is that your parents never received unconditional love and care themselves from their parents, so they literally didn't have that to give to you. So that's the first type of trauma. We're supposed to receive something and we didn't receive it. The second type of trauma is when something should have never happened in your life and it did happen. And that is abuse or mistreatment of some kind. People that were verbally or physically abused or taken advantage of, or sexually assaulted or whatever it is. That's the second type of trauma. Now, when we all have both types of trauma, right? And it's up to us to go on our restoration journey, our inner healing journey, first to discover what those traumas are and were in our lives, because these are not things that, of course, there are some things that we'll remember off the top of our head. Hey, my dad physically abused me, or I was in an abusive romantic relationship and I was sexually abused, or people that were horrible but raped and this and that. Obviously, you'll remember those things and those types of traumas, but those are not the only traumas that we have lived and that we have experienced and that we have suffered as individuals. So what happens is when we don't properly process and heal from those traumas, they basically form and become a part of our character and a part of our identity, and we go through life out of balance. We go through life seeking to escape that pain of those unresolved issues and traumas. And like I said, a lot of times this is a subconscious thing. And we go through life, if it was the first type of trauma where we didn't receive something that we should have received, we go through life trying to receive those things from people that cannot give it to us. So if you are a young woman and you consistently find yourself in this relationship and it doesn't work out, and in this relationship and it doesn't work out, and in this relationship and it doesn't work out, or if you're a young guy also, there is something in your life that you are seeking for in that other person, in these significant others, that they cannot give you. And therefore, from even before that relationship begins, it's doomed to end and it's doomed to dysfunction, because your subconscious purpose behind you even getting in that relationship is not correct, is not right. And so we talked a little bit about this before in another Wave Shapers podcast episode, which was Starved for Love. We were talking about being starved for love. And that's the concept that we're talking about. If you are missing, if you never received that unconditional love and care, you're seeking that a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a future wife or a future husband will fill that, when they do not have that. They cannot fill that void for you. Because the only way that can now be filled post the trauma is for you and your creator, for you to allow your creator to take you through a process of being healed and becoming whole again in that area. So Miles Monroe says, romantic relationships are like an omelet made up of 2 eggs. If one of the eggs is good and one of the eggs is bad or incomplete, or dysfunctional or hurting or not healed, then the omelet itself will be bad. The omelet itself will be perverted, messed up, corrupt, no good. And it's the same thing with us and romantic relationships. If we come into a relationship, seek to enter into a relationship, but we are not healed, but we are not all right, but we are unresolved, but we are lacking, then we, by us entering into that relationship, we doom that relationship. We're the ones who bring, and some people have called it baggage, but in essence, it is that. It's unresolved issue, unresolved trauma, unresolved, unprocessed emotion. And in order to ever have a fully successful, long-term romantic relationship, the very first, most important thing, and it's not just the most important thing, but it's actually the first thing. This must go first. The other steps, the other requirements for a successful long-term relationship must come after this first one. And the first one is to go through a healing and restoration journey. There are beautiful birds just hanging out right next to me right now. It's distracting. There's 4 of them. I hope they come on camera. I don't know if this little one will come on camera right here, but it's freaking awesome. They're just hanging out with me. I also don't know what kind of bird this is, but it's literally beautiful. If I got up to show you them in the camera, I'm sure that they would move. But anyway, I'm just going to hang out with my friends here. That's the number one most important thing. I think they want to hear about relationships. And we're going to do a whole video about what it takes to reach inner healing and to reach being whole as an individual. But that's the first number one thing. Now, I know you guys don't want to hear that junk. I know you guys wanted me to hear read this one book or do this one thing or say this one prayer and you're going to be completely fine in your long-term relationships. But that's not the truth. The truth is that if you don't take a minute and stop and pause and reflect inwardly and have a relationship with your creator and connect with other people that are on this restoration lifestyle. And it takes effort. It takes work. It's going to take all of you. It will take all of you. And some of you guys that your trauma or your biggest fear is to be uncomfortable. That's a thing. Those of you guys that we should definitely get into talking about the Enneagram here on the Wave Shapers podcast. But there are some people where their biggest fear is discomfort. So for those of you guys that your biggest fear is discomfort, even hearing like what I have to go back and solve my unresolved issues and go back into my past and think about my father, which I hate and who abandoned me and who didn't give me, like, it freaking sucks. And it's not easy, but it's worth it. Because the most beautiful thing that you could ever give your significant other, your future husband, your future wife, the most beautiful thing that you can ever give them is a fully whole, restored, healed individual. Because then you can love them well. The best thing that you can ever do for your family, for your children, for your business, for your ministry is to achieve healing, is to reach a place of a restored lifestyle, which is a continual thing. It's not like you get there once and then, oh, that's it, I never have to do anything. This is an everyday thing. The joy is in the journey, as one of my mentors taught me. The joy is in the journey. So that's the number one thing. We're going to go into a whole video. Part 2 of this video will be going into the details of how to reach and achieve a restored and healed lifestyle. And the second most important thing, it's going to sound so basic, but is that you need to choose well. You need to choose well. If your choice is wrong in the individual that you're seeking to have a relationship with, or if you have already chosen wrong, if you're in a relationship right now, either dating or married, and you chose wrong, this will be an uphill battle, my friend. And the blessing and the refreshment that marriage and that long-term relationship and the comfort and the trust that it's supposed to produce, it will not produce that, at least not right now in this moment, because you chose wrong. You chose the wrong person. Now, remember that we said that the first step is achieving a restoration lifestyle, living a life that is healed, that is whole. That's so important because it is impossible to choose well while you are not healed and while you are not whole, because your perspective will be distorted. Kind of back to the whole starving for love perspective and idea that we've talked about here on the podcast is, if you're really, really, really hungry, if you haven't eaten in a very long time, chances for you holding out for that better food, for the food that's going to provide you more nutrition, more protein, more, better for your life, the chances of you holding out for that, waiting for that, being patient for that, it drops dramatically and drastically. If you're really, really hungry, bro, you'll freaking eat whatever. And the same thing, if you're not healed, if you're not restored, if you're not living in the restoration lifestyle, if you're lacking and you're needy, you will not hold out for the right person. You will not hold out for somebody who meets all the requirements of somebody that you should be teamed up with and living a parallel lifestyle with, or somebody that is equally yoked, for those of y'all that want to use that particular phrase. Being equally yoked doesn't just mean somebody that has the same faith. You can have the same faith as somebody else, but not be equally yoked with them. Because that term in and of itself, to be equally yoked, comes from, that analogy comes from when two donkeys would be able to pull a heavy cart because they are the same height as each other. That's where that comes from. So you can have somebody that has the same faith as you, but if y'all are vibing on two different frequencies, you're unequally yoked. I have met beautiful girls that share my same faith, that come from a good family, that seem, pretty decent in many respects, but they're straight up like hella religious. And that's unequally yoked with me, because religion is lame. Remember, religion is the practice. It is the word religion comes from the word the search, to search. So it's literally the process of trying to achieve. And guess what? I've already achieved. And I don't say that in a prideful way. I say I've already achieved because I'm living under the grace of the achievement that was given to me as a merciful gift. So I can meet somebody who has the same faith as me, but if she's hella religious, we're unequally yoked. We're not going to vibe together. And so the first step is to become healed and to become whole, so that your perspective can be straight, so that you can appropriately look at the options and choose well, not from a place of emotion, but from a place of faith and reasoning. I want you guys to repeat after me and say, I will choose my partner from a place of faith and reasoning, not from a place of emotion. Because emotions, my friends, my brothers, my sisters, they're up one day, they're down the next day. The heart is deceitful above all things, man. Especially when she has a fat booty, bro. Because your emotions will just trick you. For real. Or the guy looks like your ideal type. Your emotions, man, your butterflies, they'll flutter all over the place and your reasoning will go out the window. So when it comes to choosing right, the third video in this series, we're going to talk about the importance of having a list. Do you have a list? Do you have a list of, the list should be split into two, non-negotiables and negotiables. If you are in a place in your life where either now or in the future, you're going to be open to meeting your significant other and open to a long-term relationship, do you have a list? Have you sat down, evaluated who you are, where you're going, what your purpose is, what you like, what you dislike, what's your vibe, what's not your vibe, and made a list that says, my wife or my husband, non-negotiables. These things are non-negotiables. These things are negotiables. So in the third video of this series, stick around. If you guys like this topic, you guys want to talk more about relationships, talk more about the necessity for girls to squat out here, hey, I'm out. But seriously, if you guys want to talk more about all that stuff, comment below, share this video with somebody that should hear it, like, subscribe, wave shapers. We're talking about everything on here. But do you have a list? So I made my list. So I have like two things on my phone that basically are like my criteria that would even ever allow me to consider somebody for a long-term relationship or to want to get to know them in a romantic capacity. But I'm going to refer to the second one right now. I made my list. A few months ago, I said, I'm making this freaking list. I've heard about the list for a long time. My mentors have told me about the list. I'm making this freaking list. And I have a list. And I'll go through some of the stuff on my list in that third video. Make sure you guys stick around. And yo, my bros and girls too, steal from my list. Use my list. If it resonates with your spirit and your soul, this is not like, oh, I copied his list. No, this is not a unique thing. This is like a good thing that we stand for truth, and that our list is not based on some bullcrap, which, by the way, I made my list on the 9th day of a water fast. I'd been drinking water for 9 days, and on the 9th day, I said, it's time to make the list. Why did I do that? Because I wanted to make sure that my list was not based out of a fleshly perspective or an emotional perspective. And you already know the principle. The more of the flesh, the less of the spirit. The more of the spirit, the less of the flesh. So one of the ways, if you are seeking spiritual enlightenment, one of the ways to push yourself in that direction is to humble or to submit your flesh. And the most direct way to submit your flesh, fast. Stop eating food. See how long your flesh can put up a fight. And so on the 9th day of a water fast, I woke up at, I think it was like 3 or 4 in the morning. And I said, I'm making my list, bro. This is important. We've heard it, right? We've always heard it. The number one most important decision of your life is your decision for faith, which is true. The number 2 most important decision of your life is who you're going to marry, which is also true. That's straight up true. You unite yourself. You become one. You become through blood and water pacted with one other individual, soul tied with them, and that person is the wrong person. Your life is about to be effed up, my friend. And where this all comes from, and I'm going to finish with this, because I have to go to the beach with my friends. Literally, one of my friends is waiting for me. But I'm going to finish with this. Where this all comes from, and I can talk more about this in the other videos, is over the past 2 years of my life, 7 of my friends and family, 7 because I counted them before I started filming this video, 7 of them have had serious marital and or long-term relationship, but particularly marital like issues. 2 of those 7 have already ended in divorce. I'm talking about, and these are 7 people that are close to me. Some of them my family members, bro. Like extreme narcissism, abuse, both verbal and physical, infidelity, both emotionally and physically. And I'm looking at this, my friends confide in me and they tell me about the situation. I want to be there for them. I want to support them. I want to love them. So, bro, unload your crap on me. Like, let me know. But at the same time, while they're unloading on me, I'm not going to lie. In the back of my head, I'm like, holy sh. I said, new. And I started reaching a point in my life subconsciously, past few months or the past like year or so, where I was like kind of reaching a subconscious point where I was like, bro, I don't even know if I ever want to get married. This issue is apparently too risky, apparently. And I kind of had to have a heart check. And I was like, wait, the way that I'm perceiving marriage and I'm perceiving long-term relationship, where am I gathering my information from? Am I getting it from the circumstances around me, or am I getting it from the word, the unchanging word of my creator? You know? So I've had to have like a heart check, and the creator is still dealing with my heart and preparing my heart for what is to come in my future and whatnot. But I started reaching this point, and I'm looking around, and I would even like to go into some of the details, but basically I'm looking at all this. I'm like, yo, what is wrong? We obviously got it wrong, because these 7 people that I'm talking about, by the way, these are people of faith. These are like, their intentions are good and they're pure. Of these 7 people, 2 of the women freaking called the cops on their husbands. The husbands had not gotten physical on them. They were pulling some bull. Like, it was just like, I was like, bro, this is a movie right now. Like, people are watching way too much Netflix and think that they should bring this into their real family. Like, what the hell is this? One of the guys was unfaithful. One of the women was unfaithful in these 7. And I'm just like, one of the women was beating the husband. I was like, hey, yo, I'm out. I was just like, this is going to ham right now. And I started, asking myself, what's wrong? The math is not mathing up. Like, what? And I'm not saying that I have all the answers to life or to relationships, but I do know that these 2 things are an absolute necessity, that when I run those 7 people that I know through this filter of, were they healed emotionally, spiritually, and physically before they got into this relationship? No, not one of them was, unfortunately. And did they choose well? No, not one of them. Well, one of them, or 1 or 2 of the 7, I think actually it was a good choice of spouse. But again, if you don't have that first one, that second one basically becomes null and void. Because even if that other person's good, you're bringing your F up into the relationship. Now, you may be married, you may be in, if you're married, basically, and you're already in this relationship, and you're kind of like, my relationship is jacked up, what do I do? Well, you got to go back to the freaking beginning. You need to focus on yourself and your inner healing and your inner restoration, because that is what's going to allow you to see clearly, to really know what to do next. This is part 1 of the 3-part series, Relationships. The most important things for a committed, long-term, romantic relationship. If you're out there and you've been betrayed, you've been hurt, you've been backstabbed, I want to tell you, don't give up on love. What you experienced wasn't love. That was selfishness. That was unhealed people, hurting people. It is the model and it is the desire of the creator that you'd be in a beautiful relationship that gives you love and peace and stability. I declare it over you. I declare it over your future. If you receive that, just close your hands on that, receive that. It is coming. I love you. Wave Shapers, you are the hope of the world. I will see you in the next one.